Hey guys, and welcome to my UDK tutorial series. In this particular episode, we're going to be going over terrain, and I'm going to talk a little bit about skyboxes, because that kind of has to do with terrain as well. So, might as well get started. The first question probably is, what is terrain, exactly? Terrain is kind of like the thing that is used to create like sloping hills and valleys and mountains and big plains or whatever that you would need to use for your level. Now, if you're going to be making a large plain and not really have many hills, like at all, it's just going to be a big plain, then you don't want to use terrain, because it is a lot more, it is pretty CPU intensive, because it renders like a lot of like little bitty triangles, and it's pretty accurate. Not accurate, that's not what I meant. But it renders like a lot of little bitty triangles, and you can adjust how far it renders, like how many in one particular area. But it still is processor intensive if you have a lot of terrain. So just keeping that in mind, if when you're working with it, you want to utilize it for like hills and actual terrain, like creating natural terrain that you would see when you're just walking outside. So that's kind of what it is, but it's just kind of like its own special thing. It's not like a mesh or something that you can import in. You kind of make it in the editor. Now, to get to the terrain, click Tools, New Terrain. This is the only way to get to it. UDK has a lot of different ways to get to a lot of different things. But New Terrain, this is the only way to get to that. So, click that, and you're presented with this menu. Now, these three things right here tell you where the terrain is actually going to start. Now, this is going to be the bottom left corner of the terrain. If you're just looking at the screen like this, I just created a blank new map, added this light in here to create like an effect of the sun at high noon. But you can adjust these three things to adjust the location. You don't really need to, because you can always move it later, but if you wanted to, then you could adjust it here instead and then not have to move it at all. Your patches is basically the size. If you went with 500 by 500, that's almost going to be the entire size of this big grid area. So 500 by 500 is huge, okay? You'll see when I get in and kind of show you exactly, I start walking around on it, how big 500 by 500 is. That's what I'm going to be using. Now, you want to be careful with your terrain sizes, like I said, because sometimes I've had UDK just crash for no reason at all when doing this. Like, the last time I started recording this, UDK crashed on me. I had to start over. My microphone wasn't working, which is mostly why I started over. But anyway, I did have it crash on me. So, just keep that in mind. So, make sure that you save stuff often, or you have it auto-save. Now, if you, just a little quick thing here, if you are familiar with geometry, most people are, but I'm just saying, like, specifically, like the Cartesian coordinate plane, then you have, your y here, your x here. That's essentially what this is, actually. And then you just have a third dimension z to be able to actually have objects in 3D space. But this actually went along the positive y-axis and the positive x-axis. So that's where it started. It's 0, 0, but it just went along the positive and y, the positive x and y axes. I don't know why I wanted to say that, but I just kind of found that interesting. I'm a math person, okay, so just kind of interesting that that's how it defaultly spawns upon the positive x and y. Anyway. But as you can see, you can just easily drag this so it's not going to be a big of a problem. But I'm having to zoom like really far out to be able to get this whole thing lined up, and I kind of just want to line it up, you know, sort of in the center of this huge grid thing. And I mean, I guess you don't really have to stay outside the grid, but it's there, and I've not really had too many problems as long as I keep all of my builds within the grid line. So, to be completely honest, I don't know if it is a problem if you go outside or not. Though, I have had some issues with lag if I've had like terrains go outside of that. You know, but I don't know. You can try it and see. But anyway. Alright, now the next thing before we really start messing with the terrain here is go ahead and add a skybox so that this whole, you know, thing looks realistic. Let me go ahead and add a player real quick. And player start. Because if I go ahead and jump in here now, we have light, but it's just like a void sky, and that's not really cool looking. So I want to go ahead and add a sky in here so it looks a lot more realistic, because the sky can really help. Now if you watched my content browser tutorial, or you already know about the content browser, then all you really need to do is just search for sky, and and you can just limit it to static meshes, and you get, you know, Skybox. Now you could grab one with a texture already, or you could just grab one of these domes or half dome things. It's completely up to what you want to do, and you can just apply a texture to it later. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to grab this one because this has a really good texture to it, and the clouds move. So now notice this one's kind of small. And you know, like the whole key to these skyboxes is the way the material is made to be really advanced and stuff. So it really doesn't matter what you use as a mesh. If you wanted to use a different mesh, you just need to make sure you apply the material to it. So if I deselect this and go down, notice it's using like these material instance constances and stuff. And I go in here and look, and it's using these three things to create like actually that's not the right one. Which one is it? Is it this one? Whoops. I think this is it. Oh crap. I think UDK is about to crash. Dang it. Nope, there it goes. Okay, there we go. So you can see here is all that stuff going into making this material. And it actually has like a stars texture as well applied to all this. So there's a lot to it, and all these clouds are moving, and there's all this stuff. And that's really the whole thing behind the sky. I'm not going to get into that because I really don't fully understand it. I just use what they have here. But you could use a different, you know, mesh if you really, really wanted to. Though I don't really see why. But, okay, moving on. I'm going to go ahead and make this bigger so it'll fit over the entire map. It needs to be bigger than that. Nope. 12. Nope. 15. Nope. 20. Yes. Maybe. Move it up a bit. No, because that'll do that. Okay. Just move it down enough with the clouds from the second level. Because this is actually a sphere, and the texture's just applied to both sides of it. I'll just make it 22, and that should get it out of the corners there. I need to move it down a bit. Okay. Alright, so now that we have this here, and of course you want to make sure that the sky dome is big enough that it doesn't actually cut into any corner of the map, because then the player could maybe come over to this corner. Yeah, see, I got to make it a little bit bigger, because otherwise the player could come all the way up to this corner, and when you get really close to it, it just doesn't look realistic at all anymore. The whole point of the sky dome, I've been saying sky map, I don't know, but the whole point of this thing right here is to make sure that it's far away from the player, and that's where it kind of looks realistic, you know. because looking at it like this, you can tell that this is solid. So I'm going to back it up even more. So now the player gets here. I mean, it still kind of looks odd, but the odds of the player walking this huge distance, because this is really big distance, by the way. I'll show you exactly how big later on. I mean, if you really want to sit through and watch that, but you know, you just kind of have to keep like that in mind. And as if you have like a huge tower or a mountain or something like that, or you give the ability for your player to fly in a game, something like that, you also have to keep in account the height, because as you get closer up, it also does the same effect. Now it takes a while, a lot longer for the same thing to happen as you get closer up, because it still looks okay, but you can kind of start to see a more circular thing. And the real sky, it just goes on forever. You can't really tell a definable shape. I mean, the Earth is round, but the sky itself is just everywhere. It's just up. There's not like a roundness to it. I mean, if you get far up enough, you can see, the curvature of the Earth, but not the curvature of the sky. In this case, it's a curvature of the sky, which you don't really want, if that makes any sense to anybody. Because you can see the clouds are round in this case. So, you have to keep that in mind. And to fix that, just, you can either lower, like, towers or the height that a player can fly or something like that, or you can just make your sky map taller. Do things like that. So, again, it looks more realistic as the farther you are away from it. And in this case, I keep saying sky map. It's not a sky map. Skybox. That's what it's called. I don't know why I'm saying sky map. I really don't. But in this skybox, we also have a sun as well. And like I said, there's a lot of material work to this. So if I actually move this light, and I'm going to talk about lighting in a later tutorial, and I'll talk about this more in detail, but I can actually do this. Bam. Okay, so the light that is here actually reflects, there's a sun, and it'll actually reflect the fact that there is a sun in the sky. Or no, well, the light, the sun in the sky actually reflects the fact that there's a light shining in that direction. So it'll follow the dominant directional light, which is what that is, wherever you position it. So that's cool, and and the clouds and stuff also take on whatever color that you assign to this light, and cool stuff like that. But anyway, we're gonna have to jump into this real quick, and so you can see it looks a lot more realistic. This particular sky box has a couple things. It doesn't look exactly uber realistic in my opinion, but it's got moving clouds, and that's kind of cool, so that's why I'm using it. And it's got a sun too, so it would look better if we had fog, but I'm not going to get into that, so, and not in this tutorial. Alright, now on to the terrain, which is probably what most everybody came here for. I apologize, but I kind of wanted to go ahead and cover the skybox. So, alright, I should have shown this. Okay, this button right over here is the one that you hit, the terrain editing mode, shift 3 mountain thing. And this is really the only tool you'll really need messing with terrain, besides applying materials and textures to things. You have your material editing, like painting textures onto things like grass, dirt, rock, whatever you want. You can paint that onto here. You can raise and lower terrain. You have any and all editing to do with terrain is through this menu, so it's very handy. Begin. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So click the paint button here, and you'll just get this. Now, the whole trick to this, you can move the mouse around with the right mouse button, and you can move the mouse around with the left mouse button. So to actually start painting things, you have to hold down Control, sorry. Hold down Control and then left click, and that's when it actually starts painting. So you can just hold down Control, left click, and just, sit there, and it'll just go up and up and up and just keep going up. And just keep on going up until, you decide to stop, or you can, just keep doing this. Now, do note, this is incredibly high. Doesn't look like it, but if I go in here, look, that's pretty high for the player. So you can kind of see what we've done. We've just made like a bunch of hills and stuff. Well, I guess it wasn't as tall as I thought it was, but it is still pretty tall. And so we've got all this going on. So you can kind of see one thing you really want to be able to be doing a lot is testing in first person what it looks like, because it always looks different in first person. Always does. Because you can see that these mountains aren't actually very wide. If you wanted the player to be able to walk across them, you would need to do something else and make it a little wider. You might not be able to tell that as well just looking at it like this. Though, they do have a lot of point to them, so you probably could, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. Now, if you right-click while holding Control, just remember to hold Control anytime you're working in the terrain editor, because that is what allows you to actually take action and edit the terrain. Otherwise, it's just normal camera movement. So that's just the general rule. If you're working in here, just hold Control and you can then do actions. Left click to do one, right click to do the opposite. So if I hold Control and right click, it goes down. So I am now lowering terrain. I can make like a giant hole if I wanted to. Okay, so that's how that works. And it's very important to keep track of where that center ball is and where exactly it's on, especially when you can't really see behind objects. So sometimes you want to be able to position that right on top of like this mountain, and then right click and the whole mountain will go down like you want it to. Because notice how you have the center ball here, you have this inner circle, and then you have this outer circle. The inner circle is where it's going to be reducing stuff at. The outer circle is the fall off rate, so that's kind of where it falls off, and it kind of fades it. So it's the inner circle is the strongest radius, and that's where it's going to stay constant. So if you set the strength to 100 like it is now, it's going to be 100 all throughout that inner circle. The outer circle, it'll go from 99, 98, 96, 50, 49, all down to 1, and then 0 at the very outside of that circle. So that's kind of what that's one way you can get like a mountain to be like that. See how it's less around the edges, and then in the very center, it's a lot more. That's how that works. So you can play around with that. If I did this really huge fall off rate, then I could get a much larger mountain with a lot more fall off to it. Okay, so and you could do that, obviously the opposite as well. So now if I increase this radius, okay, notice what happens. So I've got a much larger area that would be flat, because it's raising all of one area equally at the same time. So this mountain has a really huge area that's flat on it, and then the fall off is everywhere else. Now I could take the fall off completely, and then you would just get this mountain that is just it's pretty much straight up. Now I messed that up. I'm just going to try to position and just look straight down. So something along like that, you just get this huge cliff. There's no fall off to it at all, except right there where I kind of moved my mouse over just a little bit. So I mean, as you can see, if you move your mouse, it's just kind of start doing like that, and just start raising it up from the bottom. So I mean, wherever the terrain is, it just starts going up equally all at the same time. So yeah, I mean, you can get some interesting things. So you keep doing like this, and you've got like this weird cliff thing here. I don't know, but that's that. And of course, you can do the same thing going down. So you could have like see, you could actually do this and then fill all this with water if you wanted to. You see, so you could have a lake. Now, normal lakes have a bit of a fall off, but you could do this. So you could have like a deep point, and then you could have like it slowly falls off, and you have a lake there. So that's how that works. And as you can see, you can adjust all that. Now, if I adjust the strength, what happens is it basically slows the rate that it's going up. So now if I start to go up, it's going up much more slowly. So this allows you to make really fine-tuned things, and you can just go around a little bit. You can raise up some of this. You can do this, and we don't have such huge mountains so quickly, because I've been holding this mouse down for a while now, and it's still lowering. It's still raising it, and I'm going around here, and we don't have like a huge cliff. We kind of a softer, not so rigid cliff face as some of those over there. Now it's still pretty big, but because I went around as I was doing that, it kind of made it a little softer. So you can keep that in mind as well. And whenever I'm working with terrain, I'm changing these all the time. And you can type values in here if you wish to, but I just usually use this slider, and I'm just changing it all the time. Sometimes I'll actually set the strength down. Well, if you set it down to 0, it won't do anything. But you could set it to 1. Like if you wanted to just make this tiny little, several tiny little bumps in the terrain, then you could just do bam. And it's going to be there, but it's going to be barely noticeable. Okay. I actually probably should do it a little more. So that's low. It's raised it up just a bit. And if you look very carefully, no, okay, let me do it a little bit more. Well, anyway, you get the point. It's not very noticeable, but it'll be there. So that's entirely up to you working with terrain. But anyway. Okay. Now mirror. This is fun. You can do X, Y, or X and Y. Okay. Now this is self-explanatory once you see it. Basically, it allows you to make 2 copies at the same time. So I can do this. Well, that's a terrible example. So I'm going to start off... move this over onto my other monitor real quick. Alright, so now they're going up at the same time. Okay, they're mirroring each other exactly across, the X-plane. And I could switch these if I want to. They're just going to continue to mirror each other exactly. So you can make this mountain. You can make mountain ridges really easily all the way around the map without having to go just one time. You can mirror it across the other side so that you can have 2 mountains along maybe the x-axis or something, and they're exactly identical, although reversed. So I mean, it doesn't mirror it exactly because as I go this way, this one comes in the other direction. So it slopes this way and then slopes this. Okay. So over here on the left, it actually slopes to the right, and on the right, it slopes to the left. So it kind of reverses some of the stuff. But other than that, it still does it. So if I go up, that's fine. If I go left, the other one goes right. So just keep that in mind. Now, I'm going to bring this back over here. Now, if I do X and Y, I mean, Y, that's the same thing. It's just on a different plane. It's over here. If I do X and Y, I get this. So if I do X or Y, note if I get over here, it doesn't matter, and over here, it's fine. But I get close like this, and it only like mirrors it in a straight line. But if I do X and Y, then only whenever I get to like 0 on the coordinate plane does it actually kind of merge. But I can kind of go in this circle now. You see. So I'm going to show X again. And I can't do the circle. I'm going in a circle, but they're just both going in circles. They're not like I pass myself twice at 0 and then also along the x-axis, well, the y-axis actually. I guess that's the x. I guess I got sideways because this was the okay. That is the normal coordinate plane. So X would be here. So I pass myself there, and then anytime I get close to the X-axis again, switch it back to XY, it's just mirroring, however far away. Oh, that's just Y. Now it's just going to stay away. Now, I mean, it's not going to stay exactly the same distance. It's just going to repeat however far I am from the origin, and then just kind of duplicate. It's just going to reverse both the coordinates. So, if you're kind of like a math person, then for grins, let's just say this is the red one. I'm looking at the red one, like this one right here. That's 1, 1. Or, well, actually it would be 1, negative 1. This one, the pink one over there, on the other side, would be negative 1, 1. So it just reverses the coordinates. Over here, I have 1, 1, and then it's negative 1, negative 1. So that's what it does, if you're a math person, if that makes more sense to you. So I've really elaborated on the fact that that is what that is, but, I just want to make sure that it made sense to people, because, sometimes you have to explain things a couple times. I completely understand that. So, now all this stuff, all those options, to be completely honest, I've never used them. I don't even know what they do. I've never had a need to use them, because everything else that I would possibly need was in these other buttons over here. So, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do the smooth tool. And you have the same options for pretty much all of these. There's a couple exceptions, but you have pretty similar options. So what the smooth tool does is smooth things, obviously. Turn the fall off. So if I go over here and I do the smooth tool, you can, and I've got the strength all the way up by 100, just so you know. So if you didn't want it to be this dramatic, then you could obviously change that. But it kind of just takes off all those rigidy points, and you can just kind of smooth this down. Now, I mean, it kind of takes like an average kind of thing. So because part of like height wise, maybe not an average, but it kind of like takes down like some of the higher points and brings up some of the smaller ones and kind of meets them somewhere in the middle to kind of get a smoothing effect, is what I kind of gather. Because if you have it where part of it is down here, so see how part of that is down at flat, it starts to kind of lower this whole thing. And I mean, I'm effectively really reducing the whole size. So I mean, if I sat here long enough, I could in essence just shave this down all the way from its former glory of a huge mountain, but it would be incredibly smooth. So it's now this much smoother hill, and it looks more natural, though it is high, probably a bit too high to be a proper mountain. I could kind of come out like this, come out maybe a little bit more like this, and kind of just keep doing. Kind of just working it a little bit to get it the right size. And now it looks almost like it could actually be a hill. So the smoothing tool is very useful. Now, in some cases, you kind of want these huge cliffs. Because these, cliffs like this, I believe they call them mesas. I don't remember many geography terms. Something like that, but they'll just be like big rock upheavals and volcanic activity, and you'll just get these huge objections of rock, and they'll just, be pretty much flat like that. So it's not to say that you can't have those, but if you're going for more normal, natural things, you can use a smooth tool a lot. So it's entirely up to what you need, but there you go. I mean, and of course, there are cliff faces too. I mean, I live in an area where, drive about 30 minutes down, and you can, there's water, and you can look down. There's this huge cliff, and then the beach below. So, I know that there are cliff faces, but I'm just usually the more common things is you have these hills and stuff. Rambling on. I apologize. All right. Flatten. Now, flatten does exactly what it does. It flattens. But that doesn't mean that it flattens at this height right here, where it just makes it go back to the normal height. It flattens at whatever terrain at whatever height this orange ball is. So, it doesn't matter how much of the circle is off, or what the fall off is, or whatever. Wherever this orange ball is height-wise is where it starts flattening out. So I can do this, and now I have this huge ball. And this is actually really useful, because you can just get it to whatever height you want, and then you have this huge cliff thing. So if I get it to the point where the player start is, well, actually I'm going to have to move the player start up now, as is this light. Let's move this light up more and scale the actual icon up a bit so we can see it better. Alright, now I gotta find the player spawn. No crap. I hit cut by mistake. Okay. There it is. So if we move this up on top of this, you can kind of see what it'll look like, because it's kind of cool. It'll be completely flat. Okay. So now we can just kind of go over here, and we had a huge fall down. Okay, but it's cool looking, and you have these really jagged edges, which you could tune up with the smooth tool. So you could kind of get rid of those jaggedy edges like that. So we have these those big dunes over there. We've got several colored mountains, and we got this huge mesa that we're on over here, and a lake thing maybe down there or something down there as well. So we got all you've kind of got the shape of a terrain really coming together. So that's that. And I'll actually demonstrate using the smooth tool here. Get rid of some of this fallout, decrease the radius, decrease this a bit. So, could decrease these settings. That way I can be more accurate, because I don't want to smooth too much of this. So kind of, now, see, that's getting, increase this, and the fall off just be 0. Let's do 5. No, that's not, I need, okay, there, kind of smooth that up a bit. And you'd have to sit here and play with it for a bit, but it kind of smooths the edge a bit, so it kind of slopes down a little bit. And these zigzaggy lines are really just shadowing. If we wanted to run the lighting real quick, we could do so. It might take a while though, and if it is, I'll just stop it. I don't have light. I don't have a light mass importance volume, so it may take a while. Usually, whenever you have a big dominant directional light like that, where it kind of acts like the sun, it takes longer because it has this huge area that it has to worry about. But this may or may not take a while. If it does, then it does. But that should help. Keep in mind it's giving a preview. And if it persists, then you really just have to mess with the lighting, though it shouldn't. If you put it on production, it shouldn't continue to create that. So yeah, this is going to take a while. So I'm not going to worry about updating that. Whenever you have like these huge terrains, because this light right here is actually infinite. So because I don't have a light mass importance volume, it could probably just take a really long time. And I know you don't know what light mass importance volume is, but I'm just kind of explaining why I can't show you this, because this is just going to take forever without one of those, and that would just be kind of annoying to set up right now on camera. So anyway, we'll just have to deal with the shadowing issues. But onwards, oh, by the way, I did say earlier, whenever with the paint tool, that left clicking does one action and right click the opposite. So watch what happens if I right click with the smooth tool. It makes it more rough. It actually is giving it spikiness. So I can actually increase spikiness with that. Now, I mean, it does nothing on a flat terrain because it's roughing flat, and I mean it can't just generate random stuff like that. But you want to take, like, terrain that is existing already, and then you can make that specific terrain smoother or rougher. So now, if you did want to generate like random like just bumps and stuff in a flat surface, you could go to the noise thing right here and left click, and you have noise. Actually, let me increase the strength all the way 100, and the radius and the fall off and all that. I'm just increasing the max so you can kind of have a bigger thing to tell. So if I just kind of hold it here, it'll just kind of keep randomly generating noise. It'll get progressively more aggressive, as you can see, and you can end up like with some crazy freaking stuff. Okay, that kind of looks awesome. I don't know why, but it just kind of looks awesome. Now, if you right click, it decreases the noise. So it does add noise, but I mean, it's reducing the amount of noise that is here. It's kind of like leveling it off a bit more. It's making everything more uniform. I mean, obviously you still have spikes, but there's a lot more of the same height spikes. If that makes sense. So it does still do noise, but it kind of like makes everything. It doesn't have. It's not so noisy of noise, if that makes sense. So left clicking will, do that. Right clicking, kind of that. So it's kind of really hard to tell the difference unless you sit there and really look at it. So I'm not going to do that for much longer. But the noise is cool. Though I've never actually found a need for it in anything yet. But I mean, it's not like I've done a whole bunch of stuff anyway. Now the average. That I have used before, mostly with terrain stuff. Well, actually, I have used the noise. My bad, I have used that for working with materials, but I'll talk about that in a second. The average works well. I use it a lot of materials. You basically, it'll take the average of go away fast. All right. It'll, of course, take the average of the thing and raise and lower the terrain to get that. So I probably didn't really see that too well. So if I do control, it's taking the average of all of this and kind of notice how this is the flat terrain. It's actually lowered the terrain some, but it's also raised it up some. So that's how that works. And I could go over here, and it's taking the average of everything. So now it's actually raising it up as I dig into this mountain and have more of that mountain. So depending on what you have more of is how the average will cut things out. And wow, that actually looks kind of cool. But so you can get like this cool step thing, because as I dug into the mountain more, it got more of the high. So I had to compensate and bring up because it's an average. So it takes, so if you have a lot of really high numbers, the average is going to be more on the high numbers rather than the low numbers. So if you have a really high and a really low, then it's going to be in the middle. So that's kind of how it works. I mean, everybody knows what the average is, but I'm just kind of explaining in this case. So I could sit here. It's not going to do anything. It's going to average it out. As I dig more into the high part and have more high for it to work with, it's going to get higher and higher. Now, if I start to go down, it is going to actually start to, well, is it though? So if I kind of stick it out where it has a lot more, if it has a lot more low, see how it has more low than it does high? It is going to bring it up. It is bringing it up some, but it also brought it a lot farther down. So if you wanted to take care of some noise that you did, I could go over here and it just averages right out. So it kind of does the same thing as the flatten tool, but it doesn't stick at one height. As you go into other heights, it kind of changes its height. So I could kind of go all over here, and it just have a huge change. So, you have that. So I just ran it all over that, and I have, this. And it kind of, you can get some really interesting effects with this. So sometimes you can purposely make a lot of noise, and then run the average over it, and you can kind of get like a flat thing. Or whatever. I don't know. So you see how that works. And right-clicking will do the exact opposite of that and make this huge mess, which I did not intend to do. So we have like a really low section and a really high section, as you can see. Now if I go and run the average over this, it is going to create lots of things, but I just cleaned it up. So okay, that was way too quick. Okay, so I did the average thing real quick. So in half of it, it actually makes a really high section, and then the other half it's a low section, and in the middle it's kind of like a not as bad section. So as I'm right-clicking here, you can kind of see that forming. You could get some really interesting effects terrain-wise with that. That kind of almost looks like a urinal. I'm sorry, okay? But it kind of does. A little bit. I mean, I don't normally make jokes like that. But it does. Okay. Moving on. Okay, so we have, I did flatten, what was that one? That's not switching anything. Okay, visibility, okay. Alright, visibility. This is an interesting tool. Essentially what this allows you to do is remove sections of the map that you want to, like, maybe put a static mesh in. The terrain, like if you put a static mesh in here, it'll intersect with the terrain. It's not going to cause a big deal. You're not going to get like any flickering. That's, kind of how the terrain works. It's good about that. You don't get a lot of flickering and stuff with the terrain. But, the terrain is still going to be there. So if you wanted to have like a cave or something, you would have to kind of remove some of the terrain so that you could actually have a cave that goes inside a mountain. You just have to remove one little bit, and then, because to save rendering time, it doesn't fill in all this stuff. So if I go in the side here, it's completely hollowed out. So you could just create an entire like labyrinth of caves, of meshes and stuff, and put an entire cave together inside this. On the outside, it would be a mountain. And so you could actually continue to edit stuff on the outside, but on the inside you just have a cave. And you wouldn't really have to do like a lot, because if it's a cave, a lot of the time there's just a little bit of a cave and the rest is just solid rock and dirt. So, but first of all, you would actually have to have an entrance to it, because you don't want to just walk through the mountain. So of course, strength in this, I guess, doesn't really matter too much. Turn it down a little bit, turn the radius up just a bit, and fall off is going to be 0. Just kind of illustrate this a little better. So I could just kind of come up here and bam. This whole section is gone. Now I could right-click, it's back. Reduce the radius and the strength more. Come over here, maybe about there. Okay, now it's still going to do the whole thing. That is just because that is one whole square. Because it kind of organizes this whole thing as squares. Let me see if I can show it now. Well, if I do that, you can see how many triangles there are in all of this. So it's kind of cool looking a little bit. I don't know why, but you can see, you know, how many triangles there are in this and how it works and all that kind of cool stuff. And you can see there are a lot of triangles. And I'll get into tessellation in just a minute, which kind of increase that. But let me delete that. View, no. Okay, I'm trying to find orientation, but no. Okay, I don't know if there's actually a way to show it. I thought I'd found a way, but I'd have to look it up. I don't know. I don't see a way just right here. I may be missing it, and if so, my apologies. But these are kind of like organized in like big squares. Sectors is what they're called. So you'd have to actually like manually. You'd have to, you know, maybe come up with some static meshes to fill in there. You know, each little section, it clears out a certain square. So that's kind of how that works. Let me see. Yes, increase the tessellation a bit and see if that helps. Changes anything. Okay. So increasing the tessellation reduces the size of each sector. I just did that, you know, here and here. So if I go back over here, it's not quite as big as you can see. But notice, because the inside of this is hollow and there's no material shown, you kind of do get that. So you would want to make sure you fill that up with static meshes. But increasing tessellation does make these sectors smaller. Now, doing that also increases your amount of triangles. So I'm going to decrease the tessellation and pay attention to the triangles. Basically, it just increases how many there are, so you can get more. It just gets basically, it's like increasing the amount of pixels. If you have 16-bit, or no, if you have like, you know, 480p or 1080p, there's a difference there. So it's kind of like increasing the pixels. It just allows you to be able to fine-tune a smaller and smaller section. But it also increases the amount of lag tremendously. Okay, so each time you do that, you are increasing the rendering because you're having to render, you know, twice as many more triangles. So I'm going to decrease it. I don't want to increase it too much more. And now they get bigger. And I'm going to do it again. Now they get bigger. I can do it again, and you can keep doing this until there's just basically one like giant square. And notice it actually will kind of reduce the terrain a little bit, I think. Yeah, so notice the terrain got less. Like, you can't do as much with it now. I mean, you can, whoops. So, I mean, I can draw, but it's always on, it's just these triangles. And now that I have this thing out, you can kind of see better where this ball is. The ball is like the very, very center. And it's always snapping to the center, like the edges of these triangles. So those three, it's always snapping to the edges of the triangles. Okay. So you're going to get a lot more points with a terrain like this. You can't get as much circularness because it's reducing at the, you know, of where it can start bending at. Because it can't, each triangle has to be flat. You can't bend the triangle itself. At each one of these edges, you can bend, and you can have a triangle connecting at a different angle, if that makes sense. So, you know, like right here, here's a good example. These triangles are all bending around this top point, but the triangles themselves are completely flat. So the more triangles you have, the more places of where you can create, the closer you get to a circle. That's kind of how the gaming technology works, if you want a little sum down on that. So I can increase this tessellation a bit more, and the terrain starts to look more and more realistic. I can keep increasing it, and so now each one of these little points is where it can start to bend at. And so now you can get, whoops, that's increasing very quickly. So now each one of these little points it can bend at. It can bend here, it can bend here, it can bend here, it can bend here. The triangles themselves are smaller, reducing the total flat space that you have to have. But in so doing, like I said, it requires a lot more rendering. And the same works for applying materials, and I'll get into that in just a second. Go away, email. Okay, so that's kind of how that works. And notice we've got some flickering going on back there. If I decrease it, it'll... Well, I guess it didn't. Let me decrease again. Yeah, there we go. So it stopped. Well, that one didn't. Whatever. Ignore that. Okay, so that's how I was going to get to that, but the sectors kind of got me to that. So let me see if I can control click. So I don't know how many that is, how many triangle things it is, but it always stops at the edge. So I mean, you could sit there and count and then try to calculate, but that's kind of how that works. Now you can add and remove sectors. Which I've tried to get to work, but I've never figured out. Remove sectors, I guess, is right-clicking. Oh, what was that? I keep seeing this red. Okay, so I've not been able to figure out how to do the add remove sector thing, which that's what those those squares that are signed are. That's a sector. But anyway, if you really needed to mess with that, then there you go. You can increase tessellation. You can figure out how that works. I really don't know how that works, but that's kind of like more advanced stuff. Anyway, I mean, I apologize for not knowing how the add remove sectors tool works, but I mean, I was just like control clicking and it wasn't doing anything. So, but moving on, texture pan. We'll get to that stuff. Okay. Wait. Okay. So now the only other thing left really is textures. So, because I mean, this looks pretty bland. You want to apply some textures to it so it looks realistic. So to do that, open up the content browser and we will search for. Well, actually, I'm going to go to my own package. Go away. And no. Oh, dang it. I mean, destroyed that. It's not going to be in here, is it? No. Didn't think so. There's the texture. I'm just typing grass. Okay. I imported a texture that I found online and made this because it's better looking than the other grass textures that are in UDK. And it's just much better looking. So click on a material, and it has to be a material. Okay. And then you can write, once you have that selected, you could minimize the content browser, you could close it if you wanted to, like I did. You right click in here and do new terrain setup from material, auto create. And you could, if you really wanted to get down in the thick of it, you could create your own terrain material by doing this, but it'll just create a terrain setup layer automatically from the material that you make. So that's just the standard default option that you just really want to go to, and that'll do what you need 99% of the time. So click that, takes a minute, and now you have a terrain layer set up. And the first one that you do, now this is kind of important, the first one that you do will coat the entire map in that first texture. It'll replace the default texture and coat the entire map in that. So you need to kind of come up with a texture. Well, adjusting my mic, sorry. Okay. You need to come up with a texture that you know is going to be the primary one, the one that is going to be most often displayed in your map. So in this case, because I have a lot of flat area, I would more likely have grass everywhere. Now I don't need grass everywhere because grass everywhere just looks stupid. Now I mean it looks better than it did, okay, with the default texture. I mean it's already starting to look a little better, but I don't want grass everywhere. So just keep that in mind, like the very first texture is going to automatically replace the default one. Now you can have more than one. I'll show you how that works. Now do note, it creates this whole like terrain layer setup and terrain material thingy that, it does internally to make sure that it applies it correctly and all that kind of stuff, which you don't really need to worry about unless you're really doing advanced stuff, and you're wanting to edit that yourself. But I mean, the content browser, it stores absolutely everything. So because the terrain has to store the texture in a certain way, it just tells you that that's what it's doing. So I'm going to type in rock here, switch it to materials only, and I don't know, let's go with this one. And now you do want to make sure that if you're doing texture stuff, terrain texture stuff, you want to choose a material that doesn't have like half of it is got this and the other half is got a kind of different look to it. You want to choose something that's kind of seamless, meaning that you could replicate it multiple times over and it just kind of flows together. Because this one, it does. Now, you can tell that it's being repeated because of those white spots. But it doesn't have like a really sharp cutoff at each single point. Because this would, because it would be like gray, green, gray, green, gray, green, gray, green, gray, green. This is meant to go on like a wall, where the bottom portion would be covered in like, this moss stuff. So you need to make sure that you go with a material that is like that, because otherwise it's just going to look really bad. So I'm going to use this castle rock thing here. Hopefully this will look okay. Alright. Now notice I did that one and it didn't replace the grass. But how this works. Now if I want to adjust the height map, I can click on the height map. And I can adjust that. I can control click, select paint. And I can, adjust the height map however I want. If I want to change the grass, I can do that. Now, the terrain editor uses layers to work with the textures. So if you are familiar with the program that does that, like maybe After Effects, because After Effects uses layers, then this is going to make sense to you. But if you don't, I'm going to explain it. So essentially, the first layer is the height map. Which it is technically a texture. Let me see if I can pull something up in content browser. Okay, see that right there? Double click this. This is a height map. It's all purpley and pink, and it's basically those different colors are showing the game where to kind of position texture, so you kind of get a bit of a 3D effect. That's maybe not a good example, but that's kind of what it looks like, and this is essentially generating its own version of this as you do stuff. So there's another one, there's another one, so you can kind of see how that works. And that's kind of what it's doing. So that's the first one, which you don't see, but that's kind of an internal thing. The second one that you do see, that's the one on the top is the grass. The one below that is the castle rock. So you can't really do any editing with the first one. You want to edit the second, third, or fourth one. And kind of what that does is it just kind of, if you can start control clicking, it brings it through. Whoop, no. It brings it through. Now it's going to lag, but you can start to see it. So it removes, it kind of brings it through some. So like if you had a third one, and I can click on the grass, and it's actually just the height map. I can click on the height map and it's doing the same thing if I click on the grass. Okay, now that's just because the grass is already on top, so I can't like bring it forward. I know it doesn't look like it's on top where the rock is, but it's the first layer, so I can't bring the grass forward when it's already technically forward. But I can bring this one forward and I can bring it out. So that may be kind of confusing, but just, oh, I'm sorry. Basically, your second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, however many you have, anyone after the first one is the ones that you want to click on. You click on that one, and then you control click to bring it out, control right click to get rid of it. And it will just bring it on top of any other textures that are there. So I'm going to actually go in and find a third texture. Like a dirt material. Well, there aren't many. This is a rock one, but there aren't any dirt materials in here. So I'll just do this real quick, just kind of show this as an example. So I'm going to go through, kind of make this big area of this texture. Now, you know, as I was saying earlier, you want to make sure you have a texture that doesn't, you know, that is kind of seamless. So it kind of just flows into the edge of itself, because it's basically just taking a 2D texture and applying it multiple times over. And I was going to talk, you know, about that with the tessellation. I'll show you that in a second. It's applying this multiple times over, so it flows into the edge of itself easily, and it doesn't have a weird, you know, cutoff. So this one, if I wanted to bring this one out a little bit, I could do so. So I can right click to kind of get it away, kind of bring it in, and you know, it's lagging a little bit, but I can kind of bring this in, bring it out. Now this top one, I can bring that out. I'm going to click on this and kind of whoops. Alright, so I can click on this one, fill this up. I can click on the castle rock. Okay. Sometimes it doesn't want to update until you actually click over here, because it lags while you're doing this. But so I can kind of click on this, and it's not actually getting, even though I'm left clicking, it's not actually getting rid of the rock that is of the black rock dirt texture thing, because that's not the one on top. Like if I completely take it out, notice it's just removing, you know, it's just removing the castle rock texture. Okay. So I guess a better way to describe it, rather than me saying the whole bring on top thing, is that you can only edit the texture that you've selected. I guess would be better. I mean, I'm having to think up of this stuff as I'm sitting here, so I'm sorry if sometimes I explain things in a different way. I guess it's really not bringing it up on top at all then, but it allows you to do some interesting things, because I can kind of click on this. Let me not do that much strength. I can bring this in just a little bit, then go over here to the castle rock, and then bring that in just a little bit. So it's kind of got rock, dirt, and grass kind of all in this little area. Now, I mean, that doesn't really look good, but you can see where I'm going with it, where you can kind of bring in multiple textures all in like one little area. Now, obviously, it's not displaying the same texture at any given point, but you know, it's kind of got patches where other textures show through to kind of give you that feeling. So you know, that's how that works. Sorry for my poorly explained My poorly explained explanation was what I'm about to say. But my very poor explanation of, how this worked, like I said, I'm having to think of this as I'm doing it, and I just thought of a better way to say it rather than saying, it moves them above each other and stuff. When you're working with multiple ones, it's kind of not what it's really doing at all. But you can move these textures above each other, move the layers, up and down. You don't really want to do that with this one, with the grass one. You can do that with the others. It's not really going to make too much of a difference. But if you do that with this one, because that's the one that was applied to like everywhere, I've encountered some issues doing that before. So just don't do it. And it'll help you out. So, now, you have, any of these tools up here that I went over can actually be applied to the textures as well. And you actually have a couple extra tools for texturing. So, you can pan these textures if you want to, I guess it's not really working. That's just glitching out really bad. Okay. Well, never mind. But you could like flatten. Well, the flatten doesn't work there, but smoothing. So you can smooth these textures if you want to. It's not really doing much for that. Average should. Oh, turn the strength up. Oh, wait. No, I gotta actually select a castle rock. Okay, I'm not gonna smooth there. So now that's actually on selected texture. I'm smoothing like the textures here, and I smooth the castle rock texture. I could go over the black rock dirt, smooth that one a bit, and I actually just removed it entirely. So that's how it smoothed it. But textures work slightly differently. Not just because they do. So smoothing just kind of completely removes it in this case, but it's there, and you can use these. I can create like an average of. Let me apply a little bit more of this castle rock over here, everywhere. Maybe that whole mountain thing over here. If I grab the average and left click, it's just going to kind of distribute it around, which this can be kind of useful because you kind of now got like this stony grassy mix, and it can kind of look good in some cases. You just don't want to overuse it too much, and of course you want to be careful with how you're using it. But it's all up to what you need, and it's just averaging that. Now, like I said, if you wanted to start averaging this one as well, I can put that down there, and that'll start averaging that in. Now, it's not affecting the castle rock, but it is averaging this, black rock dirt over the grass. So, you really just want to affect one thing at a time. Okay, and the noise, you can create like a noise if you want, and that's just how that works. Right there. So, I'm right-clicking now. Now I'm left-clicking, right-clicking. You're not seeing much of a difference in this case because it's changing it around. It's just rotating it as you hold it, and it's just generating noise because it can't go up and down. It can only go sideways, so it's just generating a different noise. The longer you hold it down, it's just generating different noises, which is why it's moving it around. Flatten. I don't think it's really gonna. No, it does do something. Crap. Stupid alarm clock. Forgot I'd set that. Okay. My apologies. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Interruptions. Pretty much any of these that you use to create height maps will also work on this, and will do similar things. So mess around with it, and you can play around with it. And you want to import stuff. You can click on just paint. You can click on this, make this like a mountain. The top can be like grassy. And once you spend some time, like the more time you spend on your terrain, the better it's going to look. That's just how it works. You can't just spend a little bit of time doing terrain. Terrain is, it requires a lot of time because you have to, it's a very detailing thing. So I mean, I'm doing a very poor job of it right now, but you can kind of just sit here, color this in, maybe splotch in a little bit of dirt here and there, kind of change it up a little bit. Maybe remove a little bit of this, let a little grass shine in there and there. I don't know. You mess around with it, and it just starts to look better. So now if I run this, it's already looking a lot more realistic looking, as you can see. So that looks a lot better than just grass everywhere, and it looks a lot better than the default texture. Now, of course, it looks a lot different now that I'm up here, okay? But it does certainly look better. And as you can see, I mixed kind of that in a little bit, and it actually works surprisingly well. Got like a little ravine down there, actually. That's cool. But anyway, the only other thing is if you saw the grass, it kind of looked really bad, and that's just because of the tessellation level. So if I increase the tessellation, again, it's increasing the actually, let me do that. So it's going to repeat one of these textures. I don't know. I think like once per sector, I believe is what it is. Let me see. Yeah. So it's every sector. So it's that square is the size of one whole texture or material. So that's like the one. Let me go back to this. So that right there, that is going to be displayed in the one square. The whole thing is going to be displayed across that. It's going to scale it up and kind of, I mean, it's rectangular, so it's going to make it square, and then, put it in that and scale it up enough. So if I increase the tessellation, those get smaller. They should anyway. Yeah. Well, guess it's, oh yeah, because of radius. Okay. So now that's one. Well, I guess, is that actually? Yeah. Okay. Well, it's like semi one sector. It's doing a little differently than I. No, yeah, it is one sector because that is that, and then it's kind of over there as well. No, because that one there in the middle, those are the two white spots, and there's one white spot per texture. I don't know. But I mean, you can kind of see that it repeats. And as I increase this, the quality of it gets smaller, so it looks more realistic because it's it's not scaled up so huge. And wow, the wireframe's still on. So it looks, kind of iffy because it's still scaled up so high. So I can continue to increase this. And as I do so, it's going to get laggier again because it's increasing the texture more and all that good stuff. So I'm actually going to increase this twice-fold. Now, from high up, okay, it looks bad because you can see all these white spots. And wow, it is lagging so bad. It was for a minute. So up high, it looks pretty bad because you have all these white spots all over the place, and it's just like, no, I don't really like how this is looking. But don't worry because this loads. It'll look better, once you get in. to the level. And again, as you increase the tessellation, it gets laggier, so you got to keep that in mind. Dang it. It's not wanting to load. It's lagging so bad. Oh. Swarm never stopped. No, wrong one. Ah, crap. Why did it delete half the map? That's my question. Okay, whatever. Play from here. I don't know why it just deleted half the map. There's my spawn point up there. Okay. But see, now it actually looks a lot more realistic, as you can see. So, I mean, you can still sort of tell. Like, I mean, if you look off there, you can really, see it. There's almost like a line here. But, looking up close, you can't really notice that quite as much. It just looks more realistic close up. So you have to, kind of figure out, what you really want to be able to do. If you want to make it look realistic, looking down like this, or if you want to make it look realistic from far off. I mean, it's just something you have to kind of think about. And with the tessellation as high as it is, it's really starting to lag. Let me actually show you. I could do extremely fine-tune terrain editing, but there's so many triangles. So I'm going to decrease this. And notice, the texture's getting bigger, and it's kind of, actually, let me increase this twice, like I did. No. Okay. So I'm gonna, crap. Whoops. Okay. Undo that. Undo that. Stupid alarm. Alright, flatten. No. Okay, it's kind of cutting it. Okay, I've just messed everything up. Radius. Okay, so I'm going to kind of make this go up a little bit. And I'm going to maybe like smooth it. Okay, we got like all kinds of stuff going on. You can notice all this. This is actually going, as it decreases tessellation, this is going to get a little less, like already you can notice a difference, that it looks a little different. So as I decrease this, you can see now it's not looking the same as it did before. So there's another example. But half the map is still gone. I don't understand why. I really don't know why that happened. Oh well. Glitchy, I guess. I don't know. But that's pretty much everything that I have to say about terrain. Really? I kind of covered everything. Oh, well, you have brush sizes here. Those are like presets, essentially. If you notice, it's just kind of moving those. So that's like really tiny. That's faded more. You have just that. It's just adjusting presets is all it's doing. Or adjusting the stats for presets. But those are there. You can import, export terrain. Like if you could see, one thing about this is you can make this and then send this to someone else, because if I go in here, I go back one, go back again, you have these terrain layer setups. So you can import these in, and then or export them and then import them in somewhere else. And it has one for each one of these. So like essentially what would happen is anywhere I have like the rock or something, it would just kind of overlay that onto this, and it would just kind of memorize that. So you'd have to import lots of different one of these, but you import them in and then you're good. I think that's how they work. I've not ever done it, but you know, it's got import and export settings. So properties, you can go in here and edit all this if you want to. There's not like much that you would need to, but you can do that. Like, it divided the map in half. I don't understand. Whatever. So you can edit some things. You've got your layers here that you can see. That's that. You've got just various stuff. Movement, you can't really do much with the movement. I mean, you could set movement if you wanted to. Light mask settings, physics, stuff like that. Just various options and tick boxes, really. You just kind of have to go through here, look at stuff and see what you want, see what you don't want. A lot of the time I don't even mess with the property settings, because a lot of this I don't really need. I can just adjust elsewhere. So that's about all I have for terrain. So let me know what you think. If you can improve, if I can improve somewhere, let me know, because I want to be able to improve. I can't improve unless someone tells me that I need to improve somewhere. I mean, yes, having my alarm clock go off while I'm recording is obviously not good. And it's not like early in the morning. I'd set it for, let me know that when it got to a certain time I needed to go do something. But having that go off in the middle of recording is obviously not professional. But other than that, I mean, you know, if I can improve somewhere, let me know. And I never claim to know everything about UDK, so I do apologize for some stuff that I don't know. But that's just, you know, I can't know everything about UDK, because it's not like my job. Not yet. I mean, that'd be cool if I got a job, you know, using UDK, which in that case I would learn much more about it, because then it is my job and it is very important. But right now it's just like a hobby, and I have plenty of other things like school that, you know, I do. So, you know, that's that. But leave comments for future topics you might like discussed. Next is probably going to be lighting, because I've talked about lots of other things already. And then after that, I was probably going to talk a little bit about level design. Not sure about that yet. If that would even need to be something people would want me to talk about. But anyway, let's see. Yeah, that's about all I have. I was thinking about maybe doing some UDK projects where, like, I just film myself making something to music or something. I don't know if anybody would be interested in doing that. I mean, I'd speed it up, of course. I don't know if anybody would want to do that. I don't even know if I could do that, because usually whenever I work on stuff, it takes me a while, because I finesse with the details of things so much. So it takes me a while to get anything major done. That's up to people. So, yeah. And I'll see you guys in another video.